What's up, y'all? Fan requests. Did Diddy pay his artists their publishing rights before he went to prison? Well, I'm going to say this. I remember when I was a little bit younger, maybe a teenager, and young teenager. And I remember seeing something on TV about with Bad Boy alleged with Diddy not treating his artists right, not the contracts that are assigned to his artists were not legit. I remember those stories back in the day, and I always told myself, if I ever got famous, I would never, do business with Diddy. As a young teenager, I was thinking that because I knew something just wasn't right. It was too many complaints and too many disagreements with different artists speaking out here and there about how Diddy was not doing them right with their contracts, with their money, and it just stuck with me. I just always remembered that. And I'm glad I got a fan request on it because some of these artists that were signed to Bad Boy over the years, you don't even know where they're at. You don't know what most of them are doing. Some of them have not returned back to the Hollywood world because they've been through enough experience. So it's just, they were good artists, great artists. They were supposed to make the proper amount of money and, wasn't getting the money that they should have been getting. And that could really mess somebody's head up. I know money ain't everything, but you work hard for it. And you're supposed to get a certain amount. And you're not getting it. How are you going to feel? So before Diddy's September 2024 arrest and charges, Diddy had already returned the publishing rights for his Bad Boy record catalog to the artists and songwriters. My thing is, why would you wait until something bad is happening to you or something is coming up that may take you out for a little bit? You all these years you done had royalty money and not proper contracts, and you just letting time go by with people not getting the money that they earn, which was a significant financial move for Diddy, but this was a separate issue from general artist payments. Can you imagine? You're working for a celebrity. You sign a contract with a celebrity with a record deal, and you're not getting you know that you're not getting the proper money that needs to be coming to you. First off, was anybody even reading the contracts? It seemed like they wasn't. But at the same time, you're hearing the contracts weren't right. So were they reading was this a response to the contracts once they realized they wasn't getting the money, once they actually read the contract, which was after the effect? Because if somebody was reading this type of contract beforehand, I don't think they would have been signed or trying to sign with Diddy. Because once you read the contract the first time, you're going to see something's not right. So that's telling you that, after the effect, I'm pretty sure a lot of artists went back and said, hey, I'm not getting the money I'm supposed to be receiving. Let me go back and read this contract, and then realize the contract not right. There were still ongoing public disagreements and lawsuits regarding other financial matters and past compensation. Diddy began a process to return the publishing rights to many of his former Bad Boy records back in 2021. Yeah, when everything was starting to come out with lawsuits and stuff with him, but right before he went to prison, he decides he wants to make things right with his artists that he hasn't been paying. Yeah, Diddy knew something wasn't right. He knew once they got him, they was going to get him. And I don't know what was telling him in his head, hey, let me just go ahead and, you know, do my artists right that were signed to me, give them back their publishing. You know, for you to get in trouble and then want to turn around and say, hey, well, I'm just going to try to do right and give my artists back. What was the reason behind that? Because possibly maybe once he got in the system, somebody that was going to pop up eventually. So that would have been a more bigger issue once somebody would have did research on that. That's the only thing that I'm thinking of why Diddy decided to do his artists right, that he owed money and give their publishing rights back to them. That's the only thing that I could think of, because he didn't want that to be added on into the court, because that would have caused bigger issues. And the publishing rights that involved with his artists would have been allowed to receive would have been royalties for their songs and have more control over their music. And I just don't understand that if a person has a talent for what they're doing in music and they can't even have control over some of the things or most of the things that they're supposed to have control over because somebody else wants to have control over it, but you're doing most of the work with your talent, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that's being money hungry, being very greedy, you know, taking somebody else's money that does not belong to you, and you know it don't belong to you. One of the rappers, which was Mace, who didn't receive his publishing allegedly, he had publicly criticized Diddy for years for not selling his publishing back to him for a fair price. So, you know, all the good music that Mace had in the 90s going into the early 2000s, all the classical legendary music with Bad Boy, and he wasn't getting paid properly. And who would have thought? Because in that era and around that time, you would have thought everything was all good, you know? But no, Mace came out and said, hey, he wasn't getting paid properly. He wasn't getting all his publishing rights. And it just don't seem like at the time when Mace came out with his story about not getting all his publishing rights, you didn't hear too much from Diddy about responding, about, you know, trying to work with him to give him anything. I don't recall anything. While Diddy initiated returning of publishing rights prior to his criminal charges, reports indicate that this was the publishing rights themselves rather than a direct lump sum payment of money owed in the form of royalties, which many artists claim they were minimum due to unfavorable contracts and recoupable expenses. So everything was just all screwed up. But because allegedly people wanted the fame, people wanted the money that they thought they was going to get, they wanted to be around other celebrities, be in Hollywood, people didn't really pay attention to what that contract was saying. Because I believe if somebody would have read that contract first and really read it, or have a lawyer, your lawyer read it, or whoever help you read it, I don't think a lot of people would have signed with Diddy, because they would have saw then like, hey, something isn't right. This isn't right. So, yeah, I believe Diddy did not want him not paying his artists their publishing rights to get into the system. That's why he was allegedly trying to do right by them before he went to prison, and around that time when things were coming out or different lawsuits were coming out. You know, I guess he didn't want that type of heat. But in reality, and also the outcome, he's in a lot of heat. So, you know, either or, if the situation with the artist is not getting their publishing back, whether if it got into the court or not, Diddy's still in the heat. But guys, you know I wanted to come out with this video and, also do this from one of my fans, which I'm glad one of my fans also wanted me to do this, because I also was kind of like wanting to know why, after all these years, why did Diddy decide to pay people their money back? So all these years you spending other people's money, allegedly, and having a good old time, while people still trying to figure out what's their next opportunity because things didn't go right. You know, I don't know. But y'all know I'll be back. Peace.